Legal Tale, a podcast with fascinating people from the new generation of legal professionals about change, life, and laws.
There is a plane at the moment coming through.
Well, we can talk about remote work and the challenges of remote work.
I'm going to ask them not to fly over me for the next 30 minutes.
So, Alex, thanks for coming and thanks for accepting the invitation for
Thank you for having me.
Podcast.
Yeah.
So, tell us more about your remote work. Let's start directly.
My remote work. So, what kind of work I do, or my current setup, my permanent temporary setup in Bordeaux.
Let's say where you are now and where were you 10 days ago?
God. Well, you know what? I'm actually quite fortunate that I was on holiday for a week. But in the spirit of keeping this possibly as straightforward and as less confusing as possible, we'll omit the holiday part. No, I'm currently in Bordeaux, so Bordeaux, France, for all your wine lovers. That is the main reason why we came here, to drink wine. And before that, we just arrived. So we arrived in Bordeaux last night. And before that, we were in Gibraltar for a week. And before that, we were in Valencia, I think for a month. About a month, like 5 weeks. So yes, our summer has been very European, which is exactly what we intended to have. And and usually my wife and I would kind of go from one country to another it depends. Throughout COVID, it was every 3 months because we tried to really max out our visa allowance, so to speak, just so we could really stay in place for as long as feasibly possible. Now that we're both fully vaccinated and some countries are kind of opening up, thanks to hopefully better COVID rates, we do allow ourselves a bit more freedom. So moving every kind of 6 weeks or so.
I see. So you worked from all those countries, or you were also on vacation like last week?
No. So last week I was actually on holiday in the south of France. But no, in all the countries that I cited, I was I was just working full time, just everyday life, just your average day. So no, that wasn't holiday. So great though.
Actually, it's good you said it. And let's talk about how it's a day looking like, because everyone has the impression that, we travel a lot and you see a lot of stuff, but there's some days and actually you don't get out of your apartment working. So how is your day looking like?
Yeah, so I mean, most of our days, I'd say, are incredibly similar to everyone else's. Really kind of, honestly, exactly the same, to the extent that there's not much that's different in the way I wake up, I make breakfast. Oftentimes, especially, after a while, you would expect that, we would always have different breakfasts. Sometimes we have Spanish breakfast, sometimes a French breakfast, sometimes a Mexican breakfast from Mexico. To be honest, we've done this now. We've been fully remote for 4 or 5 years. So for us to have even a normal, healthy, homogeneous, boring breakfast throughout the years has been quite important. I'm absolutely I have no medical background, but I can imagine that switching up your diet every month can be quite detrimental. So we try to have something quite standardized. But with that being said, we do indulge in the local cuisine, so to speak. But everything else really is standardized. So our work days, very much 9 to 6 or 9 to 7, but this is only to the industries that I'm in. But kind of regulated work hours, so to speak. Everything else is very normal, to be honest. Everything else is very boring. So yeah, sorry to all the listeners out here expecting something very exotic and very original. My day-to-day is as boring as it gets. But with that being said, I think it comes to life on weekends. So on weekends really is where we really reap the benefits of being in a new place, a new location, a new country. That's really where it comes to life and where it's just so exciting to live this life. Likewise, going for drinks after work. It's always great to switch it up every once in a while. There's always something really fun to do. And when we are in locations that allow us to do so, we try to remain somewhat active as much as one would hope. So if we can surf, typically we'll go very early in the morning and do that there. Um, Recently, we're in Bulgaria, we could actually snowboard. So we do that quite a lot as well in the morning. So yes, everything looks the same with the exception of the before work and the after work. Those are very different events.
And how did you come to be on this path of remote work in legal industry, basically?
Yeah, so my legal background was actually, again, very straightforward. Went to university, went to law school, worked for a few firms here and there. And I was in London at the time. So I was in London, and that was in 2016. And my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, she's from the US. So we were quite young. I think
Okay.
22, 23 at the time. It's about 5 years ago. Um, and she couldn't come to the UK for visa matters, and I didn't want to go to the US because, I mean, come on, I kind of just finished law school, so to speak. I was already on this path. I did not fancy doing another 2 years of law school conversion in the US. So we're kind of thinking of how we could be together. And so what we ended up doing is just accepting legal. Well, I accepted a legal job to work fully remotely, which was great, which allowed me to really be anywhere in the world, including with her. And she did the same. So she was also very new to this all. It was like in 2017, 18, where the world of remote work was very marginal. And so she ended up as well working for a corporate travel agency as a corporate travel agent. And yeah, so we just, since then, we've been living together every day. So no more long distance relationship, especially now that we're married. That also helps.
That's one of the advantages of remote work, I
For
think.
sure, yeah. And as a result, I mean, um, now just precisely just focusing on the legal aspect of the legal work that I do. Yeah, I've worked, as you know, with Wi-Fi Tribe as their kind of legal and financial executive, and now I've been working with GooseChase for about 8 months, which has been amazing. Again, as their head of legal and finance, and yeah, it's been great. It's just being remote just gives you so many more opportunities, avenues, abilities to kind of reinvent yourself constantly, and to just really tap into what you love doing. I, of course, I love the legal world, the legal industry, and so forth, but I don't love all of it. Just like most lawyers, right? Like most lawyers don't like all of the legal work that comes with it. So for me, kind of to allow myself to just being remote has kind of opened me to just a myriad of avenues that I loved doing, including some legal, kind of more legal based matters, but also just an entire area of data work that I do a lot, of financial work that I do a lot, data analysis, data compiling, operational work. So all this jazz that I was somewhat already into throughout my formative years in the legal world, I was really able to tap into it and leverage by being remote and just having the opportunity to reinvent myself constantly.
How did you land these two jobs? Because you told me you work for a Wi-Fi tribe, and I know it.
Yeah,
I am a member. You just travel crazily around the world,
yeah,
and it could be said it's a crazily dream job, especially in the legal field. And
yeah.
after the one that you do right now, the same. You can go everywhere. How did you ended up here?
Great question. Deserves an answer. So with Wi-Fi Tribe was a bit different. Wi-Fi Tribe, I was very fortunate to start, kind of take my time to enter this kind of remote world. I knew Diego Bejarano, the CEO, from university, so we had worked together a bit in the past. I think it was back in 2013, in 2013, 14, we had worked together a bit, and he's a great guy. We loved working together. We still like each other, so we stay in great touch. Um, but so basically, in when it came to the point where I was looking to leave London, to move from London to be with my wife at the time, well, at the time girlfriend. At the time, I started off helping Diego out, or helping Wi-Fi Tribe out on ad hoc matters, right? So just for instance, Diego was like, because we already knew each other, I was like, hey, I have a question about this or that, or hey, how can I do this or that? At the time, it was more kind of organizational, like kind of organizational setup, like how to set up an organization, or how to do this, how to open a bank account, how to do this. So it was less pure legal, but more organizational, like corporate organization. And that's kind of where I started helping him out. So that was really at the beginning of Wi-Fi Tribe. Um, and it was already quite set up, but then I kind of started doing more and more work with Wi-Fi Tribe to the point where I was like, hey, I'm happy to do this for full time. I really love you guys. I mean, I already loved Diego. He's a great friend of mine, and loved everyone else, Julia and Amanda and everyone else. And so I joined full time. And so initially it was just legal and financial work. Again, I do have a master's in finance, which helps. So I know what I'm doing. But we helped a lot. I mean, I helped a lot kind of get us to kind of safe and comfortable startup stage. And then I also enjoyed traveling a lot as well. So I would kind of run chapters just because it was fun. Um, but yeah, eventually with Wi-Fi Tribe, I became CFO of Wi-Fi Tribe, which was great. But after 3 years, I was ready for a next opportunity, a next stage. I think this is what one should never forget. Um, and so I left Wi-Fi Tribe. So I had started doing a bit of work. I mean, just like most people that work within the legal industry or financial industry, ensuring that you keep your independence and always do little side stuff on the side is always great. And so this is definitely something I would recommend to anyone in the legal financial sector. Always keep your independence, always kind of do a few gigs here and there on the side just to keep your ears sharp and all this jazz. And so I had started at the time doing a bit of work as well, like again, kind of an ad hoc basis, a few things here and there with Andrew Cross. Andrew Cross, who is the CEO of GooseChase. Again, we knew each other from before. We met actually in Mexico. Amazing guy. And yeah, started helping off on ad hoc matters, kind of just reviewing contracts and so forth, redlining, like the usual stuff. And then from there, an interest grew into kind of doing more stuff just because the company GooseChase is absolutely amazing. The team is phenomenal. It's just an absolute dream to work with. And so, yeah, we just started doing more and more work. Eventually, I transitioned full time over to GooseChase, and yeah, where I've been working out full time for I think 8 or 9 months since February officially, like full time, and it's been great. There, I really do kind of all well, I do legal, financial, and kind of data operations. So kind of ensuring that the team is de-siloed, so the whole organization is less siloed into kind of blocks, ensuring the flow of data and communication kind of flows quite well from one department to another, ensuring we have the relevant automation is a bit of a stretch, but integration and just intelligence flows throughout the relevant part, throughout the relevant departments. So I do a lot of that as well, on top of the financial everyday work that is also phenomenal. So yeah, I've been very fortunate. GooseChase has been fully remote forever, and that is not a reach. I think they've always been remote since day one. So it's about 12 years, 11, 12 years. So yeah, that again, dream job. Yeah, so I can work in Bordeaux or in Valencia, or next month I'll be in the States with as much ease. So we're remote only.
And do you have other colleagues in the legal department there, or you are alone now?
No, now I'm predominantly alone, so to speak. So we still work quite closely with a law firm. Because we're a Canadian company, and of course I'm now a Canadian lawyer, I really help on kind of the legal operations, so to speak. when they are Canadian-based or Canadian-specific matters, we of course work with our legal team, with the legal law firm. I mean, with the law firm that we work with. But really, what I do is predominantly legal operations and financial operations. So, not alone. We're never alone. And also, specifically to operations, I am very fortunate to have both the legal, well, the shrewd commercial minds of Andrew Cross and Alishan as well, who's great commercial wizard as well, understands the landscape very well. So there's always that to fall back on when I'm lost.
So you collaborate closely with other people from the company. You're not just, oh, I'm in my legal department, I'm alone, I don't want to hear about anyone.
Absolutely not. Yeah. So I'm fully embedded, and the absolute every, not just the day to day, but the hour by hour kind of thing. I think to really strive within both the legal and financial kind of realm, you really have to be part of the day to day. So for me, in this case, was also sitting on customer calls that have nothing to do with law. So it's sitting with the sales team and the calls they have with our own customers, and really understanding what this interaction is like, how I can kind of ultimately better serve our customers. So yes, there's always the legal fundamental points that I always represent and always further the interest of the company. But on a wider scheme, I also always further the interest of our customers. That's really one of our best values, or one of our strongest values, is really to give a 7-star customer experience. And whether it is the guy in charge of law or finance, or our tech team, or sales team, or our designers, really what we have front and center in our mind is how can we further how can we give a better experience to our customers? And so that's really something that we have going throughout. And I'm definitely not immune to it, and quite the opposite. I love that. I love the ability that I can have this relationship with ultimate customer base. That's one of the reasons why I didn't necessarily like the sort of the stereotypical legal work, to having really the in-house counsel sit at the back office, and kind of the attic tucked away, but really as you really kind of engage in the day-to-day and really be there, be present, like anyone else.
So before starting the remote legal work, you did some internships, or you worked at normal law firms, or how was it?
Yeah. So before I worked so I've done a bunch of internships with a variety of law firms. But yeah, so just I had a very usual, straightforward path, just like everyone else, especially in the UK. So, there was nothing out of the ordinary about that. Kind of what I used to work quite heavily in was corporate governance and intellectual property. So that's mainly what I did for a while. And yeah, it's just London. I mean, anyone who lived or worked, or both, especially in London, especially in formative careers, at the beginning, when you're in your sort of mid-20s, how hectic it can be, how draining it can absolutely be. I remember living off meal deals. So thanks to Tesco's for that. Every little helps, really. So, no, everyone knows kind of the drill, the long days, yeah, so that just wasn't for me after a while, and for a myriad of ways. So really, the reason why I also wanted this shift is not only because I wanted to be with my now wife, but it's especially because my mental health at the time. I think there's not enough discussion in the legal and financial world about that. The strain, the toll that it really takes on your mental health. I had followed this typical course, this typical path that most lawyers do at the time, or most, legal professionals do, where it's, a bachelor's, law school, internships, work, all this jazz. You end up accumulating 10 years of stress, 15 years of stress, and it just never stops. There's this adage that, your first years are very difficult, but as you grow old, as you become a partner, whatever, it gets easier. It doesn't. I certainly saw almost all partners that I've seen were doing 12-hour days as much as the trainees or interns or anyone like that, because there's a reason how they got that, right? And so, yeah, it just never stops. 12, 14, 15-hour days are absolutely not common. I've worked in law firms where they had beds in the law firm. They had like napping areas. I never want to work in an environment where they have a bed ready for me to sleep in, only for me to wake back up to and go back to work. Yeah, I've worked with law firms as well that had deals with taxi companies and cab companies to take us back at like 1 or 2 a.m. Um, don't really want to work until 2 a.m. It's fine if someone does it. It's just not something I want to do. So after a while, my mental health was shot. It was absolutely a breaking point. I needed a change. And yeah, I think working remotely has just given me more control over my working hours. And that's something that I particularly love at GooseChase. We just trust each other. There's no partner behind my back looking at my screen, or I don't have to log on and have the little like kind of hourly count thing to make sure I'm logging all my hours and all this jazz and all my billables. You know, whether it's me or anyone else in the team, we just trust them to do the work. And that's the only way to do it if a company wants to be successful within a fully remote environment. It's just to trust one another, which I think the legal industry will kind of struggle with that, because I think there's so much oversight as to what everyone's doing. You know, look at your screen, look at your hours, your billables, your this, your that. But it's just not conducive to the long-term success of having a remote company. If you rely on those mechanisms to kind of monitor your team constantly, it's just not going to work.
And were you ready to work remotely when you first started, or you self-developed practically on the go, both professionally, also like knowledge-wise, but personally as well?
Yeah, great question. Was I ready? Not at all. I think I had absolutely no idea what working remotely was, simply because I did not know anyone that worked remotely. I mean, that was back in 2017, 18, way before COVID. So if my grandkids listen to this in 50 years, that was before COVID, kids. But yeah, things were different. I was definitely not ready. Um, I think the huge reliance on Wi-Fi is not something I expected in my professional life. It's really now like Wi-Fi first, everything else second. Um, but no, so things that I've learned, you know, I've learned to really prioritize overall my workspace. As I just briefly touched on, you know, having reliable Wi-Fi is the most important thing. I don't want to have to stress out about it. I just, you know, case in point, I got in last night. First thing that I did, plug a Wi-Fi booster to make sure that my Wi-Fi is great. We travel with different MiFi devices in case the electricity goes out, which allows us to kind of quickly shift and still have Wi-Fi even if the electricity goes out. It doesn't fix the battery aspect of our computer device, but you know, we always get a local SIM card. So yeah, we have now like so many tips and tricks and things to making your remote work or your remote life quite seamless now. But at the time, it was a bit touch and go. Yeah, there were a few points where I was a bit frustrated because I didn't have all my systems and things didn't work. Just things like having a phone number, like a permanent phone number to get all your verification codes on, was always a bit of a challenge, especially within the legal and financial work where the security aspects are huge. Talking of which, having a VPN is absolutely, you know, first and foremost the most important thing, especially in the legal and financial world. I don't do anything without my VPN. I have on my phone, I have my computer, just so, you know, I'm always protected and safeguarded. Yeah, so those are kind of things that I've learned, is just to think ahead with, and not, you know, some locations are great. Case in point, Puerto Escondido, I would love to go there. I would love to surf there. I heard amazing things about it. But one thing that I keep hearing is the Wi-Fi is terrible. So for me, it's a no-go. It's like I
Not
don't want
good.
to spend,
No good.
yeah, however amazing the surf may be, or the tacos may be, or whatever. There's nothing for me that will be great enough to kind of forego the peace of mind that is having a call or meeting in an hour and knowing the Wi-Fi will be fine. I don't worry about this. I know it'll be fine. But in some locations, even with the most amazing setup, it might still be terrible, and it's terrible ultimately. As I said, we're a remote GooseChase. We're a remote first company. Um, we we don't really care where people live from, so you can really live from anywhere in the world. That's fine. you know, your Wi-Fi going out happened to me in the past, will happen again. It will happen to everyone. But come on, if every single day your Wi-Fi goes out and every single day, something goes off,
Yeah.
find somewhere else to work from.
Yeah, I know also in Bali last time we went, people were telling us that exactly before us to arrive there were 3 days in which there were no internet on the entire island for 3 days continuously.
Yeah, for sure. And so we actually haven't worked from Bali, not for those reasons. Just, I guess we never made it there yet. We made it to Thailand, close enough, far enough, but yeah, it does happen. Some locations, as amazing as they may be, um, just will have electricity shortages for a prolonged amount of time. And so, irrespectively, I mean, I know Cape Town sometimes struggles with this because they have those electricity cutouts, um, and especially in the summer months for them. So January, February, they have a lot of what they call load shedding. So you can sometimes go hours on end without electricity or Wi-Fi or anything like that, which also means that after a while it becomes problematic because yes, you can have a SIM card, you can have you can have a Wi-Fi device, but that's a temporary fix because then your computer will die. So I guess you can have a battery pack, which we also have, but eventually it will die. So relying on this, like for me, it's a plan B. It's definitely not. It's for me like all this gear, plan D.
Yeah.
It's really far down. It's really if everything goes
Yeah.
terrible. But plan A, always to have steady, reliable, safe internet.
Mm. And how about professionally? Were you ready for all the legal situation that appeared on the way, or you learned?
Yeah, I think I was. I'm the fundamental legal work that I'm doing is not that different um, from what I used to do while I was trained in what I enjoyed doing, what I specialize in. So that hasn't actually changed much. The work I do is very. There's really nothing to do really with remote work. I know a lot of remote lawyers or a lot of people that do employment law specifically for remote companies, or they'll do heavily, just that kind of stuff. Thankfully, I was always a bit interested in kind of international corporate organization. So that has helped to already be quite versed with the international landscape of different incorporational structures and so forth. I was kind of ready, so to speak, as much as one can be. But my work hasn't changed. I'd say my legal work hasn't changed. What has changed is everything I've added and stacked on top of that. The way I've grown, I wouldn't say beyond the legal industry because that almost implies that, too good for the legal industry, which I'm not. I would actually say maybe perhaps grown away a bit. So I've grown away a bit from the legal industry and now embracing perhaps a bit more tech savvy stuff, like just fine, pure kind of finance and data management and operational structures and all this jazz. So that what I wasn't ready for is that freedom of being able to constantly reinvent myself and constantly try out new stuff and just fail at new stuff as well, and just not just stay static and just really grow both personally and professionally. I feel like I've grown tremendously, and I'm always adaptable to new things that come my way, which is great.
Great. Well, amazing talk, Alex. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for sharing your life with us.
Yeah,
I hope someone else will be inspired by that and go remotely in legal. It's possible.
it absolutely is. I recommend everyone to actually do it, of course, legally. I actually did write a whole blog. I think I wrote a blog post like 2 years ago, actually, which was way before COVID, about some countries that you cannot go to and work from legally. But it's been interesting for sure to see this landscape of remote work change, and so I'm excited to see how this will evolve. And so I definitely recommend everyone to work remotely, whether they're corporate lawyers working in London or Paris or New York, or any other profession for that matter.
Thank you
so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to us and for following with interest the stories behind the professionals of the new generation. Don't hesitate to write to us on the social media pages or by emails what topics or guests you would like to listen to in the Legal Tale podcast. We have LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube accounts. We can hear each other wherever it's easier for you. I would also be very happy to write to me your opinions about the podcast or about the topics debated in its episodes. Until the next episode.